This is GKW. Welcome in. A good call. I am Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee, joined as always ESPN West Palm. It is Brian Rowitz and the man who is TV 14 at all times. You can catch him on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. You can welcome Jay Hood to the show.
What's up, guys?
So where we start?
Another Thursday.
Where we start here? Another Thursday. And before we get to the TV 14 era, coming back, the PG era ending in WWE, we have to start, and it seems like old news now, but after we got done with the show last week, more allegations coming out about Vince McMahon. And, you know, the Wall Street Journal is the one that's apparently all over this, and they're the ones who broke the story. They added to that story last Friday with more allegations, including one female wrestler who said she was coerced into oral sex with Vince, later was paid $7.5 million for her silence. And she said that her, after, her relationship with Vince, he elected not to renew her contract. She felt mistreated. There was another $1 million payout in there as well. So more allegations continue to come out against Vince McMahon. Although he continues to, he hasn't been on television. He hasn't rolled out as Mr. McMahon recently on Raw or SmackDown, but reports from Raw and SmackDown say it's kind of business as usual right now for WWE backstage around Vince.
Well, great journalism, first of all, by the Wall Street Journal by breaking this news. And based on the writers that have covered this from the Wall Street Journal, they were on Busted Open with Dave LaGreca just recently. They said that there's more to come, and they're working on more stories, which is just incredible. But I'll go back to what I said before. This is disgusting. We don't know whether or not Vince McMahon used WWE money out of the coffers of the company to get all this done with his extramarital affairs. But the point is, guys, is that I think that Vince and Stephanie and others saw this coming. We saw that Connor Schell, who used to work for ESPN, who was a board member with the WWE, he stepped down because he saw this coming as well. I really believe this, bro. It's a sale is coming with the WWE. There's a reason why Nick Khan is in place. I think he's going to usher a sale. And I think that they saw the scandal coming because when Stephanie walks away, all of a sudden, Connor Schell quits. Things starts to change in that company. I really believe there's going to be another shoe to drop here with this story.
See, I've always been under the belief that unless the networks, the Fox money, the USA money, the Peacock money, unless they're saying, hey, we don't want this money associated with Vince, nothing's going to change. But I don't think Vince thinks that. USA Today says that WWE is telling investors that, quote, the success of the company hinges on McMahon standing as its leader. So they're already trying to be on the offensive and say, hey, you want to be successful, you want your investment to turn into money, it needs to be Vince leading the way. He's going to be defiant. He's going to go down, middle fingers up and fighting it. I mean, there's reports even after that first TV appearance where he said, F him, let's go do the show or whatever it was. Like, it's going to be a battle, and I feel like it might get ugly over the next few months.
So you don't think he's going to stay true to his word? Because the initial thing that he said was he was going to, whatever the board decided after the investigation was complete, he was going to be okay with it. And whatever they wanted to do, he was going to go along with it. So you think that he's going to fight it? Because I have always been of the thinking, like, Vince always seems like maybe he wants to sell just because he wants to know what he could get. Like he's the guy that's going to take you, kind of like we just saw Elon Musk do with Twitter, right? Like, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. And ultimately, Vince isn't going to ever sell WWE. Like, that's the way I always looked at Vince, in terms of having the controlling shares. And even when he took his, company public, like, it just didn't seem like he was going to do anything other than this, because I don't think he can do anything other than this. And unless it was taken from him, I don't see him walking away. And I guess that really hasn't changed. Despite all these allegations, like he was aware that this stuff was probably going to come out, and he's still going to be defiant. He's still going to think he can beat it. I don't know if he can. I figured at some point, because I didn't know how bad it was going to get. And it's getting bad. It's probably only going to get worse. I figured Laurinaitis. We all figured Laurinaitis. He's going to be the fall guy. Vince is going to be fine. But smart Wall Street people keep saying, I don't know if he's going to beat this. And that's the way you have to think of it. I mean, WWE, publicly traded company, even though Vince has the controlling shares, as a publicly traded company, if you want to keep that status, like you have to, he can't be in charge. I think ultimately at the end of the day.
But and maybe it's naive on my standpoint, but from a cocky and arrogant Vince standpoint, when it comes to a sell, he's going to want to have the upper hand. He wants WWE at its peak. It doesn't feel like what WWE is right now. If he's being forced to sell because of the tainted, name that is Vince McMahon right now, he's going to feel like he's not going to get that top dollar. He's going to feel like instead of getting that $100, he's only going to get 97, and that's going to make him more arrogant. But maybe I'm just naive in that you talk about Wall Street. Maybe that's just going to overpower everything, and he really won't even have a say in the end of it.
Well, we have examples over the last, 10 plus years, 15 years that things have changed. And Brian, you've said this yourself that, the where we are in 2022 is not what it was 10 or 15 years ago, where millionaires and billionaires can get away with stories like this, allegations like this. And where there's smoke, there's fire. When we continue to read these stories and to come to find out that there's more to this, Gabe, on most companies that we could talk about, sports or otherwise, usually that CEO would be gone. But the infrastructure here is so different because Vince, as you mentioned, had the controlling shares, and he has friends all over that board and family members all over that board. And so no matter what the findings are, we have to be able to lay this down and let people know Vince is a child. Vince is a 12-year-old that thinks that his shit doesn't stink and that every woman wants him, sending dick pics out as a 70-plus-year-old man. All these things are horrible, and it's a bad look for Stephanie and Shane and their family. It's a bad look for Triple H and everybody else that's involved in WWE. But just keep in mind, over the years, we have seen Vince act out his own personality through the characters on that roster, from Val Venus to being the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I think those are all of Vince's characters that was being played out. The same Vince McMahon that would kiss Trish Stratus right in front of his wife, had her on a leash, barking like a dog. All these things are playing out in the public. You just think it's characters, and you just think it's just part of the WWE during the Attitude Era. I think this is a lot of Vince's personality that's come out, and there needs to be a change in that company. There's no doubt about that.
It's easy to see why he feels invincible, though, because he's gotten this far. Like, he literally has been. I mean, when this initially broke, Jay Hood, you brought up the old YouTube clip from the Geraldo Rivera show of that accusation, right? And we watched that. And he was able to pay her off and drop the lawsuit against her because, well, he had to fight the United States government in a steroid suit, which, by the way, he won.
Rita Chatterton, the first female referee.
Rita Chatterton.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, he moves on from that, wins his case, buys WCW. He's the head honcho, takes everything public. Like, everything this guy has done, he has gotten away with. But now that this information is public, like you said, Jay Hood, it's different now. Times have changed. If this information comes out 22 years ago in the middle of the Attitude Era, it's not looked at the same because people are smarter to how gross and disgusting and abhorrent this behavior is.
Well, also to that point, he has to be a little worried that we talk about the board. There's 11 members of that board. The fact that this stuff is out there, obviously it happened a decade ago. There were members of that board, if not all of them, that knew that this happened. They see that money going somewhere, and there's a leak right now. This stuff is getting out there. We are finding out all this stuff. We're finding out what he's saying backstage. So maybe he feels that heat, or in all actuality, he's probably just going to fire who that person is. But there's something there that there is this sort of leak now, and maybe that board isn't as strong as it was a decade ago.
I would just tell people, no, I've got a little of this. We as a show on GKW_wrestling, please do not speculate on the alleged victims, throwing names out there. I've seen this. Please don't do that. And because one of the major stories is, okay, so there was a woman that he was involved with in the company. She didn't do what Vince wanted, and she was released. I don't want to know who that person is. I'm sure it'll come out at some point. I'm not looking to find out, going through rosters to find out who it was, because I don't care about that. What I do care about is, what does the WWE look like for the future? Along with that story, guys, is about there's been millions of dollars spent by Netflix to have this McMahon documentary. And by the way, I'm not a big fan of those documentaries because a lot of those are lies or spun by the WWE and Vince McMahon. So I'm not a big fan of those. But there was supposed to be this big project, millions of dollars spent on the life and times of Vince McMahon that's been on hold now because of what's been going on.
I can't imagine that documentary sees the light of day.
No.
Like, I can't imagine it's going to come out. I mean, Netflix has partnered with WWE with stuff. That's where the Big Show was. You know, they had some, you know, partnership stuff, but nothing to the point of USA Fox. Like, I just don't see Netflix going, especially as they deal like with their own stock issues right now. Like, I don't see them ever pushing that onto their streaming platform. Like, it's going to be a sunk cost for them. Like, it just doesn't make sense for them to release that.
100%, especially as they treat themselves as, you know, this giant movie studio. They're winning awards and stuff. You can't make a Vince McMahon documentary in 2022 and just ignore this part. Like, no matter how it ends, you can't just like end it with WrestleMania and him in the ring with McAfee and say, oh, and we all lived happily ever after. So I agree. There's no way this happens at all.
So ultimately,
one question, Gabe, I want to ask you is, do you believe that the female talent in the WWE will ever feel unsafe enough to be able to leave the company? We haven't heard that yet. We've heard speculation from former WWE female talent that said, yeah, we heard things. It was an uncomfortable, unsafe environment, especially around John Laurinaitis, which says a lot. Do you ever think that someone on the current roster, any of the female, that will say, yeah, I don't feel safe around Vince?
I don't think they'll say it publicly because they know Vince still runs creative. And the women, especially when you look at the women's roster and whether this is fair or not, I mean, it's not very big, you know, so a lot of them are getting television time right now. So if they want to be featured, if they say something, okay, what's that going to mean for my career? I want to keep wrestling. I want to keep wrestling here. I don't want to come out against Vince because this is where they've screwed up. Like, Vince shouldn't be in charge of creative. He shouldn't be showing up to Raw and SmackDown, especially after the allegation last week that, as you mentioned, the female wrestler who didn't do what Vince wanted. So eventually he let her contract expire after not even using her, you know, as an on-air talent. So he shouldn't be around creative. He shouldn't be dealing with this. Now, no one's going to tell him no, which makes me then wonder and ask you this question. Do we think the board investigation is just going to be whatever leaks are out there from the Wall Street Journal? Are they going to do an actual investigation? Or is it going to be more like when the NFL investigates the Washington Commanders and like, yeah, I don't know what's the problem with Daniel Snyder. Well, you guys have a problem with him? I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it feels like that. And I think part of the reason it feels like that is because he is still in creative. He still is on TV. I do think there might be some decisions. They say, oh, maybe we don't fight this battle. Like, I honestly think the Sasha and Naomi stuff, like, you know, a year ago, they're probably still fighting it and they're staying at home. But now it's like, you know what? Let them just go. Like, maybe it'll be us, you know, being good and trying to get some goodwill from that. But like, I don't have any confidence. And even to the point, if it's not Vince that's in charge and ends up being Steph or Triple H, aren't they complicit in this also? Like, they had to have known stuff as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, absolutely. Especially with Triple H. Like, again, the story we keep coming back to is the female wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, Triple H was an active wrestler in 2005. Right. He was a part of that locker room. You're telling me that as tight as we're led to believe these locker rooms are, like, there aren't stories being like Vince McMahon having extramarital affairs is probably the least shocking headline. Like, yeah. If you follow wrestling, you go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you're kind of seeing how Vince just kind of carries himself. I think it makes sense. But then to take it that next level, that's where, you know, again, the inappropriateness, the sexual harassment, the you know, the sexual misconduct, that's taking it to a new level. But there's no way that Triple H didn't know. He had to have been aware on some level.
Yeah, anybody that has been around Vince for a long time knows that he's been involved in this, or they have some story about it. Of course, there's always locker room stories and conjecture that happens around a company that size. But I'm sure that they were aware of what's going on. They weren't sure if it was ever going to come out, but now it's out there. Any other company and the CEO is not around or he's gone. Vince does not take this seriously because he's still in creative. And I want to make sure it's very clear that those that's listening and watching, we're not saying that Vince should be removed because I'm not happy with WWE Creative. It's not about the in-ring product. It's about the overall good for the company. Nick Khan is there for a reason, guys. And I really believe that there's going to be something that's going to happen. I don't know when, but there's a reason why Nick Khan is presiding over this company. He hasn't been fired yet, because Vince usually fires these guys. But I just think that Nick has a strong hold and a pulse on how to be able to get extra revenue streams and TV deals and sponsorships, to the point where if Vince does step away, Nick Khan could be able to step in there and kind of hold everything afloat, especially financially.
We'll keep an eye on this story and continue to talk about it because, again, the Wall Street Journal, everybody's in on it, saying that there are probably going to be more stories, and it's only going to get worse for Vince and then, in turn, the WWE. But we turn our attention elsewhere in the world of professional wrestling. We turn our attention to things that happened in ring and technically some stuff out of ring that could infect the in-ring performers as well. And what we like to call the 3 count, the other top 3 stories that we keep our eye on here on GKW. Brian, what do we have as number 1 on the 3 count?
We'll start next Saturday night. Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. 4 matches announced already. Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal for the TV title. FTR versus the Briscoes for the tag title. Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia for the TV title. And Mercedes Martinez versus Serena Deeb for the women's title. So, guys, do the matches announced so far get you excited for the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view?
I'm going to feel like a broken record. Like the pay-per-view, like these matches are going to be fun. Like sign me up for FTR versus Briscoes again. Like that was a fun match when they did it at Supercard of Honor before WrestleMania. Like that was an awesome match. I mean, Wheeler Yuta versus Daniel Garcia, it has been something they've kind of teased at during this whole BCC versus the Jericho Appreciation Society storyline that they have going on. But again, the problem that I have is the build towards this, because it comes back to 2 things that we talk about, I feel, quite frequently here on GKW. One, the build for these premium live events, pay-per-views, depending upon what company, they just haven't been good as of late. And I would argue that this hasn't been great. And the reason for that is because another thing we talk a lot about on GKW, they still don't know what they're doing with Ring of Honor. So Ring of Honor kind of gets little clips and, they'll get like a 30-second promo here. Or yesterday you see Jay Lethal come out and grab a microphone and have bad audio while he's trying to cut a promo on television. And it's just little snippets. And if you're somebody that wasn't watching live and maybe you're fast forwarding through commercials, maybe you miss some of this stuff. And it's because they just don't quite know what they're doing with ROH. They have to jam it into whatever they can on either Rampage or Dynamite, and it kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
I think that ROH needs its own dedicated YouTube page or a destination where you can be able to find this stuff. Just being able to shoehorn in ROH storyline here or there, it's haphazard. It's interesting, all these matches, right? So Samoa Joe's been off filming a movie or doing TV or something like that, right? And it's been Jay Lethal the entire time holding up this ROH TV title match. So Jay Lethal is the one promoting this. And then you never see Wheeler Yuta speak, but you do see Daniel Garcia. He's like on the tail end of interviews, right? All of a sudden, the other guys leave, and all of a sudden, hey, Tony, by the way, I got an ROH match. He cuts his like really good, solid 45-second promo. It's like at the tail end. It's not Garcia's time. It's the Jericho Appreciation Society's time. Those guys leave and goes, oh, by the way.
Talk after that guy gets to talk. No, you don't get to talk when I'm talking.
Sports entertainment. So then there's Mercedes Martinez against Deeb. It's going to be solid. 2 solid veterans.
That's going to be fun.
It's going to be a banger. And then FTR and Briscoes. So here's something about this. So I would agree.
Like Martinez and Deeb is like the only one that's actually played out. I'd argue it's also kind of been rushed because they were a tag team and then suddenly Serena Deeb attacks Martinez. So now they're going to have this match, but it's the only one that's actually played out because that's a great point. Joe hasn't been there. Yuta doesn't talk. Briscoes don't work for the company.
Right. And there's a disconnect right there, bro. It's like, so we haven't seen FTR in a little bit too. We just know the match is going to be good. So I love the buildup of what could be the main event, which should be the main event, FTR against the Briscoes, but neither one of them have been hyping this up over the last few weeks.
Well, yeah, I mean, to Gabe's point about we talked about it with WWE and their premium live events. The only difference, though, is from a WWE standpoint, they're not trying to get you to spend money. They already know you're spending $5, $10 a month on Peacock. You're getting the pay-per-view. Ring of Honor AEW is asking you to spend money next week. I believe it's $30. And yes, it's going to be an outstanding show from a wrestling standpoint. But how is this card any different than a Dynamite? Like, you have a couple matches that have a little bit of story. You have some really great wrestling matches that will deliver. But how's this different than a free Wednesday night?
Well, there are no commercial interruptions.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. No picture-in-picture. Got it.
Yeah, no Excalibur's yelling at me to stay with them through picture-in-picture.
Excalibur, by the way, I never stick with you. I still fast forward.
Watch it on picture-in-picture. Like, okay, well, I'm sorry. Got to fast forward, pal.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
the
screen's too small on my big screen. It's too small.
I agree. So, like, how do you build from it? Like, at this point, like, should they just give them Rampage? Like, if there's no TV deal yet, obviously something's holding it up. Or, like, give them Darker Elevation if people are watching that. There needs to be a way to tell these stories if you want people to spend money on it also.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes the most sense is one of those two YouTube shows, just because Friday nights are for Hook, and I really don't want Hook to go to ROH. I still want Hook. You know, I'm still rooting for Hookhausen, by the way, to continue to climb up the AEW tag team rankings.
That's right.
Maybe that's just me. But, I mean, they do have to do, I think, some more things continuously with Rampage. I don't think the answer there is make it ROH. I don't think that's something that TNT would be happy with ultimately. I think taking one of their two YouTube shows and making it more ROH dedicated makes sense. And then when you sprinkle in these things, you can say, you could see more about Joe and Jay Lethal coming up Tuesday night on ROH, whatever they're going to call it, on YouTube. You know, like you can then direct people, you can sprinkle it in and then direct them where they can get more in depth on why I should care about this card.
Yeah, and maybe once they have that, we see Ring of Honor exclusive people, because outside of the Briscoes, these are all AEW wrestlers. Like, they're people we see on Dynamite. The Yuta and Daniel Garcia are part of a big AEW angle. So maybe once they have their own thing, then they try and work in some of these younger guys.
Yeah, I'm happy that ROH is back on the scene. It's just the way it's happening. It's just very odd, you know. And it's just the typical booking of Tony Khan. People want to see all these great matches. Yeah, I want to see these great matches. Also, like a story. Also, like to have a dedicated channel to be able to see this. Say, for instance, I was an ardent ROH person, and I can understand if you are, right? Because if you don't like WWE or if you don't like AEW, maybe you always like ROH, because ROH has had so many great stars over the years. The CM Punks and the Bryan Danielsons and Seth Rollins now, Samoa Joe. It goes on and on. So there's been so many great talent that's come out of ROH. So if I'm an ROH fan, I want to be able to get all my ROH fill. Where do I get that? Dribs and drabs on Rampage. That's got to be able to get fixed. I mean, since you're under the Discovery Warner brand, isn't this perfect for True TV? The channel that you can't find during the NCAA tournament?
Yep. Perfect for it.
Yeah, they advertised a new show last night. I couldn't tell you what it is or who's on it, but they advertised a new show.
Wait, they have things other than Impractical Jokers on True TV? I just assumed it was Impractical Jokers all the time, and then that marathon would get interrupted for NCAA tournament games every March.
That's the only reason I noticed it is because Impractical Jokers go, oh, wait, there's another show on the network? Like, they acknowledge it and play into it. So good job by them.
You laugh, but that is true. I believe that is true. It's just a long marathon of Impractical Jokers. Hey, it's Murr. He's making me laugh again. Look, it's Murr. It's like, okay, I get it. Okay, you guys are Impractical Jokers. It's a funny ass show, though. I'll tell you that. It is funny. But it is a new show. Yeah, it's a spinoff of that of some sort. I did see the commercial for that.
Well,
but that's what I mean. Yeah, so Impractical Jokers, this new show, and then ROH. That's all you need for True TV. And the tournament when it comes back around for the first four. That's all you need.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know what's taking so long. Like I assumed back when this was announced that Tony Khan had acquired ROH, like everything was just going to fall into place really quickly. Oh, he's probably got a streaming deal so he can put the ROH library out there somewhere. You know, maybe that's going to go on HBO Max or Discovery Plus, and now it's all going to be one because Discovery Plus wasn't very good. But that's neither here nor there. So
you see Vikram right here. Vikram says, "Do we think if Vince got a hold of ROH, he'd give them the platform or throw it into the ground like WCW or ECW?" Well, Vikram, if you watch Raw and SmackDown, you are watching ROH.
It's a good
Well,
point.
I mean, to Gabe's point, though, like, it almost feels rushed. Like, I get Tony was excited in the announcement. Like, it is weird they announced it. They didn't have a deal yet, and now here we are months later, and they're in the same spot. Like, they could have done that Dallas show because that was already on the books. They had to do it. This show wasn't necessary for next week. Like, it just feels so rushed and just not put together.
Yeah, and that's my biggest complaint with it. But again, it's all solved once they figure out what they're doing with the product. And until they figure that out, I don't need ROH stuff on my TV because to me it bogs everything else down and makes everything else that AEW is trying to do, it makes it feel less important.
I agree. There's similar to the WWE, there is a group of talent in the back that's on Dark and Elevation. They're like, what about us? Do we ever get our push? Do we ever get our chance to get out there? And the answer is no. Sorry, lady. Sorry, guy. You have to sit in the back and wait for ROH people to come out there. And by the way, this is not taking a crap on the ROH talent. Samoa Joe, Jay Lethal on your TV, Yuta, Daniel Garcia, Dave Martinez, FTR, the Briscoes, all those on our AEW TV. It's awesome, but it just confuses the marketplace. I just don't want AEW to go down the same path as other promotions that confuse their own product to try to get wrestlers on and just try to get matches on. You've got to be able to stay focused on your own product. You just have to. AEW should be job one to have IWGP here and Ring of Honor there. It just confuses it, Yep. So hopefully there will be a deal in place. But as far as this card's concerned, I'm excited for these 4 matches they have so far.
Yeah, and I mean, this is an important next 2 months for AEW as they try to get some of that momentum back that they had coming out of Double or Nothing and build that momentum to whatever ends up happening at All Out. In an A town like Chicago, but not at one of their A arenas.
That's right. It's the Songus Arena in Lowell, Massachusetts. And by the way, the T is silent in Songus.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
It is. I had
no idea. Had no idea.
So they're in an old ROH place, a D town, Lowell, Massachusetts. Good luck there. It'll be sold out, I'm sure.
What's number 2 on the 3 count, Brian?
Last night, Dynamite ended with Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland being crowned the new AEW Tag Team Champions. What was your reaction to Swerve and Our Glory winning the tag titles?
I was surprised. I was shocked. I thought they were just going to put on a good match because it seems like with the way FTR's been collecting championships, there was going to be some showdown with the Young Bucks at some point for all the belts to be the best tag team. Hey, maybe even the Young Bucks were going to go to WWE, take out the Usos, get the undisputed tag team titles, and everybody was going to get together and there would have been, 6 belts per man for all the tag team championships everywhere. So I was surprised that the Young Bucks ultimately did not walk away victorious last night. I mean, I'm excited for Keith Lee and Swerve because it has been, despite push to the background and push to dark and dark elevation at times, it has been a story that they've been trying to tell of, these 2 guys. Maybe there was some dissension amongst them because of Swerve dumping out Keith Lee in a battle royal. And they were able to repair that and ultimately become tag champions and put that behind them. So there is a story that they actually told there. So tip of the cap to them, even if they tried to bury it. But I'm excited for those 2 because they're fun to watch, man. Like when Swerve does the thing where he jumps off of Keith Lee's chest, like the athleticism in what he's able to do is unbelievable.
Yes, it did surprise me as well. Only because I really thought, watching that matchup, that the Young Bucks would win the matchup. Also thought that Ricky Starks and Hobbs have cut the best promos out of all of this. Ricky Starks had really come into his own. I think I want to accentuate the point that no matter if you lose or take the pinfall, if you work hard, you're over. And I thought that Hobbs with like what 4 or 5 power bombs all in a row, and watching Ricky Starks work out there. Even though they lost, I think that was phenomenal. I thought they had a great match. And what as far as the Young Bucks are concerned, you are right. I want to see FTR against the Young Bucks, but I just want to point this out. I want to put this into the conversation. When I see FTR with the AAA championships, the IWGP championships, and ROH championships, especially on Dynamite, don't they look like the champs? Aren't they the champs? I mean, seriously, like so what you've done is that you buried your own champions. So if it's the Young Bucks or if it's Swerve and Keith Lee, they are less than, because you've got 3 sets of championships, not AEW championships, but every time you feature FTR, Brian, it makes it seem like that whoever the tag team champions you have for AEW is less than, because FTR has all this gold, all this drip, right? And so, to me, you've kind of you've worked yourself into a shoot in that spot.
Yeah, and that's the weird part. Like, it did seem like it was obvious it was going to be Bucks and FTR, and you have, FTR not getting the shot despite being the number 1 contenders. You have the Bucks not being in that match at Forbidden Door. And that's why I think added to the shock last night, because I thought one of these teams, whether it's Swerve in Our Glory or Starks and Hobbs, they should have won it over Jungle Express at Revolution, I believe, when they had the triple threat last time around. They should have won it there, one of those teams. And I remember thinking last night, yeah, it's going to be a great match. It sucks one of those teams has to take a loss again, and the Bucks are going to leave with the titles. And I know there were reports that the plan was for the Hardys to ultimately be the tag champs, and all the stuff with Jeff happened. But the FTR Bucks thing, like, that could have main evented All Out. I know they like to put the world title in the main event, but this was their one shot to give the tag team titles that main event, because you say, hey, this is just the interim world title. So it's weird they didn't go that route. Do we go FTR and Swerve in Our Glory now at All Out? Because, like, that doesn't feel as big of a deal.
No, especially, like, if you've been to All In / All Out, it seems like the Bucks matches steal the show every time. Like, they've had tremendous matches with the Lucha Bros, and that's what I thought they were building towards, that we would get that unbelievable match at All Out, FTR, Young Bucks, everything on the line. And I guess you can still do that because the Bucks are big enough. They don't need the titles to be in that feud. It just feels like then it could have been bigger. And It still would be pretty big, but it could have been bigger.
Yeah, Lee and Swerve make a good tag team, sure. I just didn't expect them to win the championships. I was really looking forward to seeing Young Bucks FTR one more time, because that's the matchup I think that many fans want to see. Now, is there going to be a swerve, so to speak, with Swerve and Keith Lee? Did you notice when Lee was down in the corner, Swerve was going to do something there, and he did not? So what are you telegraphing there? What are you doing? Like, is there still mistrust between these two? If that's the case, then you're just wasting time. Like they can't be champions and have an issue. That's got to. I mean, either they're going to be a tag team or not. Don't put the titles on them at all.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that did kind of pop into my head is when they decided to hot potato the TNT title between Cody and Sammy Guevara. Yeah. They kind of just bounced back and forth, and Sammy ultimately came out on top. So I don't know if they end up doing another thing like that here. But then it kind of diminishes it. And, like the TNT title has some work to do to kind of regain what they're trying to sell us this title is, what it was when Brody Lee did, in fact, hold that TNT championship. So I hope they're not just hot-shotting it to try to, hey, anything can happen on Dynamite. Make sure you tune in because we have all these championship matches that they do like to put live on television because they only have the 4 pay-per-views a year. But I hope it's not just a quick, and in 2 weeks later, the Young Bucks are going to come away because Swerve in Our Glory ends up breaking up.
Out of West Palm, GKW_wrestling on Twitter, Mike G asked the question, says, why do the champions lose when they're not pinned? He says that stipulation makes no sense where you didn't get neither Young Buck being pinned in that spot in the tag team title match on Dynamite in Savannah.
That's good booking. You're protecting the Young Bucks there. The Young Bucks don't take a loss.
That's good booking. That's right.
There are very few rules that actually are followed in whatever the professional wrestling rule book looks like. All right. But triple threat and losing your title without getting pinned, that is one that they stay true to. That's just part of pro wrestling at this point.
I will say, poor JR trying to keep up with who was legal last night. That was a rough one for him.
Well, I mean, in fairness, like I feel a lot of Young Bucks matches have that where it just, like, wait, who's legal again? Because there's just, so many other things going on. And that's just usually when it's, a 2-on-2 tag match. You don't even have the third one. So trying to figure that out. I on that one.
Yeah, that was a weird one last night.
That's fine, but you can't call it's 2022. You can't call the match like it's 1991. I mean, like he's looking for the tag rope, and the Young Bucks have a Young Bucks match. That's why I wasn't a big fan of them for a long time, because no matter who they face in the Indies, Brian, it'd be like, well, this is a Young Bucks match. That means that it's almost like AAA Mexican rules, where you just come in and out of the ring when you want to, no tags, just all over the place, and just like, okay, Young Bucks style match. I've given them a lot more credit as of late than I did the previous 10 years, because I'm seeing a team that's really evolving, I think, of the Young Bucks. And so JR watching this thing is just like, who's legal? Well, the match with the Young Bucks, I guess it doesn't matter because they do their own thing.
Well, and to AEW's credit, early AEW, a lot of tag matches would be like that. And wrestling fans, being who they are, they're like, wait, that guy wasn't legal. Why did he take the pinfall? He shouldn't have taken it. So AEW has had to clean up a lot of their tag team matches to make sure they're being more transparent, I guess, with who the legal man is.
But I mean, with something like that, like, why not just lean in and just like make your own rules? Like, it's wrestling. Like, hey, like, if you're knocked outside of the ring, you're not legal anymore. The two guys in the ring are legal. Like, just lean into it then.
I agree. I mean, it's one of the things that JR brought to the company, by the way, this whole thing with referees, because nobody puts the officials over like Jim Ross over the years. Nobody.
And he did it last night. He did it last night before the match too.
Oh my God. What a great, put the wrestlers over. I'm not saying to be the WWE and ignore them, but I think it's assumed that the officials are going to do a good job. That's the assumption. Right? I call college baseball. I never say, Matt McClung, the home plate umpire, does a hell of a job on that first strike call. No, it is like, I assume he's going to do a good job behind the plate. I assume that. What do I know?
It was great because I did notice that last night before they I think Excalibur, they showed the ref, I forget who it was, holding up the tag belts, and Excalibur says, and whatever official has drawn this match, and JR's like, as it should be. This is he's exactly where he should be. Like, okay, that's interesting, JR, but okay, let's watch a championship match.
Yes, until that referee's made to look like an idiot at some point with his back turned. Great official until he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. What do I know? So,
do we think that they are going to be? Let's go around. Is Swerve in Your Glory going to be the AEW Tag Team Champions walking into All Out early September in Chicago?
No.
I say yes.
Yeah, I'm going no, because I think they get it back to the Bucks, because Bucks FTR is, to me, the money match, and you make that as big as you possibly can.
Then why did you change the titles? And why did you have them drop it in Savannah? Why would you do that? You don't need that moment.
That was the Bucks' first defense. Like, the Bucks didn't even defend the titles. Like,
so
it
need that
moment
because it was Fyter Fest. Do you think he felt like he had to? Okay. It's week one of Fyter Fests, and it's one of their special TV shows. So now does Tony okay, I've created this thing. Now I have to have something happen on this show.
You're right. Fyter Fest.
Well, I'm not saying it has to make sense. I'm just saying, you look at, so Jon Moxley lost on television. Winter is coming. They've done these title changes before on these special shows, whether it's been Winter is Coming, Fyter Fest, Beach Break. They do some of these title changes then. So I don't know if he just felt like, oh, I've created this thing, so I have to do a title change now, which would be a bad decision.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Because I never, yes, it's Fyter Fest. I hadn't thought of it that way. He probably did it because of the theme. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying that I didn't think about it being Fyter Fest because for me it happens on pay-per-view or a huge crowd at Dynamite.
Yeah,
but I get it.
Well, because Fyter Fest like week 2 is tomorrow, and they're like, or not tomorrow, next week, and they're like tying in Shark Week with it because JAS is going to be in a shark cage above the ring for barbed wire everywhere match. So Fyter Fest is still continuing next week. Maybe we'll see another title change and the Young Bucks get it back then. Who knows?
In Duluth, Georgia. That's what it's going to be Wednesday. Savannah to Duluth. They got all the old WCW haunts, don't they? The old Sid Vicious Sting spots from 1990. God almighty. They're making the loop, aren't they? Savannah to Duluth. God.
All right, Brian, what do we got at number 3 in the 3 count?
Going back to WWE, Andrew Zarlin of the Mat Men podcast reports that beginning July 18th, Raw will have a TV 14 rating. He's since reporting the date is not set just yet, but Raw will be going to the TV 14. So how different will WWE be without their PG rating?
I mean, Cody Rhodes can't wait to bleed on WWE television when he comes back, right? Like he's just counting down the days.
Cody, by the way, after the report, tweeted out a winking face emoji. So some people speculating maybe he had something to do with this.
So what do you want to talk about?
I mean, I think it gives them a little bit more freedom. I know Vince went on the Pat McAfee show and he called, AEW gory crap. I'm not expecting like a bunch of blading suddenly and a bunch of unprotected chair shots, but I am expecting a little bit more cursing. I'm expecting them pushing the envelope with cursing in terms of the promos that wrestlers give.
So with TV 14, you expect 3 things, especially in wrestling: blood, language, and violence. These are 3 things that you expect. Let me tell you, bro, it's why Gabe Neitzel's a genius and doesn't know it. He mentioned on this podcast, like, what if the Young Bucks went to the WWE and followed Cody, right? So the only way the Young Bucks work, or anybody else from AEW taking that leap to go to the WWE, is for them to want to be themselves. They all want to have that Cody deal of saying, I want my same music, and I want to wear my robes, and I want to be able to use my own verbiage. I want to say belt instead of championship. I want to do all these things, right? Now, everybody can't get the Cody deal, but could you imagine Cody being the Pied Piper and starting this revolution of TV 14, saying what he wants to, and here come the Young Bucks, and here comes whoever else's contract's going to be up pretty soon. MJF, maybe.
I was about to say MJF, especially the promo, the profanity-laced promo he last gave when we saw him. When you started talking, J Hood, MJF was the first name that popped in my head.
Well, you said Young Bucks, and so that makes sense to me too. So just think about it. Gabe's already planted the seed. I know all these other podcasts are watching; they're going to steal this, but Gabe's already. Did you see that, bro? He already planted the seed of like Young Bucks, WWE. So then MJF, and then others, because this is not taking a shot at AEW because I think it's a fine promotion. It's just booked weirdly. I think it's just young and still got a lot to learn. But when contracts are up, when contracts are up, and Cody says, you know what, it's pretty good here. We're TV 14. You got a chance to be able to spread your wings a little bit. They're looking for new talent. What if, right?
Yeah, I can see that. But like, to me, the Bucks, they can work as PG. Like, I get what you're saying about them being themselves. Like, they don't do anything that's that super edgy. Like, they're not really that violent. Like, the flips, the kicks, like, that can work as PG. Like, to me, nothing changes. Like, the PG rating was sort of the default, like, oh, this is to blame for WWE sort of, lacking creative. Like, it was the one change where, like, well, we need something to blame. Oh, TV PG. It's going to be the same people writing. Like we talked about before, it's going to be Vince writing until he's on his deathbed. Like, it's going to be the same stuff. Maybe he gets in a few more poop jokes now, and that's the extent of it. Like, it feels the same to me.
If they're changing it, there's a reason for changing it. Like, otherwise, why change it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think Vince does anything. Assuming that this is powered by Vince, and I think it's safe to assume that it is. Like, I don't think he's going to change and go back to a TV 14 rating unless he's looking to do something, unless he's looking to open up some different avenues for his talent, or maybe even makes it easier for those guys from AEW to transition over because he's seen some guys that he likes over there. And hey, yeah, you don't have to conform to our PG style. We've opened it back up. It's TV 14. We can allow you to be edgy. I think that makes a ton of sense, whether it's the Young Bucks, whether it's MJF, or somebody else on that roster that maybe they have their eyes on that they want to bring, back into the fold or into the first time.
And bro, I understand your point of saying, if the writing is the same, then what's going to change? How edgy can you be? Like Ezekiel starts swearing at Kevin Owens,
right?
Like how I like, but here I wrote down a short list of guys, and so my thought of being TV 14 is to allow the talent to be able to be an extension of themselves. That was what the Attitude Era was about. When you did a promo, it's like, here's your bullet points. Here's the point that you got to get to, but all the rest is going to be your own verbiage. That's how it was back then. I mean, so guys like Heyman can already do that. They have full autonomy, I believe. Heyman has. As long as Heyman gets to the point, he can speak out there as long as he wants. Roman Reigns, the reason why the Reigns is over is because it's Reigns. It's 100% Reigns. Right. It's himself. Just get to the point, but you fill in all the rest. Hey, so-and-so town, acknowledge me. Hey, I'm on God mode, all that stuff. These are little catchphrases, but ultimately it's Reigns. Cody is himself for the most part that we saw him. But moving forward, I want Becky Lynch to be herself. I want the Usos to be themselves. Lashley, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has a salty tongue, and I saw this in ROH. Now, you didn't see any of this in WWE, but he can really cut a promo. Street Profits, Dolph Ziggler, Chad Gable, those are the people I want to be able to express themselves in this new era, meaning don't script them with stupid stuff or make them say sucker and succotash like they did Roman at one point. These people should be able to express themselves the way they want to really relate to the audience, because people know when it's just script, and you don't see their personalities. If you're going to do TV 14, allow the best talkers to talk.
See, I think you're getting your hopes up. Like, I would love to see that. Like Kevin Owens at any point with the mic being himself, yes, sign me up. But I think, this is the same people that send, Moxley out there with a gas mask and like, oh, that's good shit. Like, that is what's still going to be there. And like, they might say a dirty word or two, and maybe you have some blood here and there. We're not going to see, 8:30 bleeding like we see on Dynamite. It just feels the same to me.
By the way, I believe that's 2 weeks in a row Mox hasn't bled on TV. So, shout out to him for showing a little bit of restraint on Dynamite.
Yeah. Well, he's a jerk because he hard-weighed himself on Wednesday. You saw this, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have to bleed. He hard-weighed on purpose. There was a time in wrestling where if you did bleed, you'd get extra money in the envelope. He's not getting anything extra for bleeding. He did that to Takeshita on purpose. Like, he didn't have to bleed. He's bleeding, so let me bleed. I'm a hard weigh myself. What are you, idiots?
I mean, a little bit. It's what he is, man. Like, that's just who he is. That's just too much. And I love it, by the way. I love it. I'm all in on Mox.
You keep doing that, and you'll be on the shelf with Danielson with concussion syndrome. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. But he did not have to bleed.
No.
He's just being an ass. It's just like, oh, my opponent's bleeding. Look at that blood. You don't have to do that, moron. Interim.
Interim moron.
Interim moron. Yes. Interim moron champion. IMC. That's what he is.
He's the AEW IMC. That's for sure.
Right.
What do we have in our news and notes this week, Brian?
All right, guys. Our buddy Peter Rosenberg on the Michael K Show had Goldberg on to talk about his relationship with Bret Hart, and here's what Goldberg had to say.
Yes, as Goldberg the character and as Goldberg the human, there's no question about it. I mean, when an accident happens and you tell your side of the story and nobody believes it, especially the person who is negatively affected by it, yeah, it sucks. And I will take it to my grave because I'm sure that he will never forgive me. But hey man, what else can I say? I've said I was sorry and that it was unintentional, and it was the furthest thing from my mind, I don't know, 1,000,000 times. And of those 1,000,000 times, he's come back with, yes, it was intentional, and he's a punk and he didn't know what he was doing and he ruined my career. So, it sucks, but you can lead a horse to water and you can shove their face in the damn water, but you can't make them suck it up their esophagus. So if you can tell that I'm pretty pissed off about the fact that he still harbors it, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, I truly believe that it just shows what a human being I am, and that I can forgive people for even accusing me of something that's not true.
That's Goldberg about his relationship with Bret Hart, or lack thereof, I guess.
I mean, two things. First of all, LaGreca looks very uncomfortable as somebody else is ranting, which is just kind of funny given, him going viral for a rant that he had last week. Second of all, Goldberg, I'm with you, bud, until you decide to pat yourself on the back. You don't need to pat yourself on the back at the end of that. There's that just serves no one's purpose other than going, wait, so you said everything there just to kind of be self-serving, not because you're actually remorseful for what happened to Bret. And look, as I can understand where Bret's coming from, man. If Bret believes it was intentional and it ended his career, right? So Bret Hart, I understand why he's ticked off at Goldberg. I just don't understand why Goldberg had to pat himself on the back at the end of that. It just doesn't make any sense.
Goldberg's never got it. Period. He's just never understood. And I know he had a lot of voices in his. It's a longer conversation, but I know he's got a lot of voices in his head from the 90s. Nash here, Hall there, Flair there, and I don't think he's really understood the business. I think that he's made a lot of money in the business, but as far as the time-honored tradition of taking care of wrestlers and not being reckless, I mean, it's just I'm not surprised that he feels that way. I'm not surprised that he pat himself on the back. I know that there will be some that will say Bret takes himself too seriously. I love Bret. I love Bret Hart. And it's unfortunate that Goldberg was reckless enough to savant kick Bret Hart into retirement. I know that's not ballet, and I know it's tough, but I just think that Goldberg just never got it. I mean, Bret feels like he had another good 3-4 year run, maybe 5 years left. Even after WCW closed, he could have came back to WWE or went to Japan, someplace else. But Goldberg ended his career, and I can understand why Bret is bitter about that.
Yeah, I mean, not only those years, but CM Punk's talked about it. Bret would be one of those guys, if healthy, he's getting paychecks to go over to Saudi Arabia and wrestle and have that once or twice a year. He's getting Goldberg's money, essentially. When we see Goldberg pop back up, that would have been Bret. Bret would still be cashing WWE checks in a ring to work once or twice a year still.
He didn't Bret did not like Bill Goldberg at all in WCW because the way that Punk looks at Ryan Reeves, Ryback, that's how Bret looks at Goldberg.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Tell me you're really bad. Tell me that was on purpose, or that you're just really bad and you suck. Because that's that was the line that Punk reportedly told Ryback after Ryback power bombed him through a table.
I'm sorry that I suck. I mean, that's what Ryback said, right? I mean, so the same thing though. It's in WCW, you can go back and look at some archives of some interviews where he'd call him Bill Goldberg, and the company was like, call him Goldberg. Yeah, whatever, Bill Goldberg. Bill did not like Goldberg at all because he thought he was reckless and thought that it was half a shoot, in which it was not. And so Bill, as so many great moments that we've seen from Goldberg, him beating Hogan, on Nitro, and some of the other things that Goldberg has done has been great. But he's just never understood the business in an intricate way, and also in a safe way that could have protected Bret. So there's that.
Elsewhere in the WWE world, Dave Meltzer reports that for the WWE's tryouts in Nashville next week, they're reaching out to more indie wrestlers as opposed to just going the ex-pro athlete route.
I mean, this was always going to happen, right? Where there were, because there's going to be some big people on the indies that are going to fit the aesthetic that they want. And I think it ultimately also goes back to something that Daniel Bryan talked about when he was in WWE, and he's talked about since he's been in AEW. He was able to kind of survive and thrive in WWE because, you've got the big show over here, but then you've got Daniel Bryan over here. If you just run out cookie cutter after cookie cutter after cookie cutter WWE, this is what Vince looks like. That's going to get real stale real fast. You have to have some difference and having some technical wrestlers that maybe don't fit that Vince McMahon model of being big Hulk Hogan like muscle men, like that's just going to make your show better. Like there's room for the Rey Mysterios of the world. There should be room for the Ricochets of the world in WWE.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me just make sure I'm clear, Brian.
Yep.
Did you say that the WWE is going to go back to the indie route? Is that what you just said?
They said they're going to more wrestlers. So instead of, 100% ex-athletes, maybe they work in like 20% indie guys now also.
This company is so hypocritical, whichever way the wind blows. It is amazing. The way that they were going about
Is
business.
Triple H influenced?
Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I hope so, because that's what kept me watching the black and gold brand in NXT. Some of the best indie guys with an opportunity to be on a major stage. That's why I watched every week. This company is so freaking incredible to me and so hypocritical. We're not going to go to indie guys anymore. We're going to have people that are 25 and younger and backgrounds, athletic backgrounds like lacrosse and amateur wrestling. We're not doing that until the well ran dry.
Right.
They tried that. All over the world, they're looking for talent. Wait, I don't understand. How come this person just is not immediately Hulk Hogan? How come this person is not immediately the Ultimate Warrior? How come this hockey player is not Brett? What happened there? Well, there's a reason. It's because you have to get trained for this shit. That's why, you idiots. You have to be able to look at indie stars, international stars, and say, how can they work in our system? Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. We're going to get this person that had an athletic background and just bring them all in and train them. Remember the edict that came out from the WWE? That's why they changed NXT. They just wanted athletes. Lash Legend, and she's a WNBA player. Now, it's worked out fine, but three-quarters of that roster can't work because these are people from backgrounds and are trying to change the face of the company by having athletes instead of actual people that love professional wrestling, that want to be part of the WWE.
That's the thing. Like, yes, for every, Roman Reigns, Dwayne Johnson, like that were college athletes and then became professional wrestlers, like you need those people that just absolutely love it. And Bianca Belair is, somebody who loves professional. She was an athlete and it's worked out. But if you don't have that love of professional wrestling, like the people to me that have most success, especially in WWE, when they produce those documentaries, you hear Becky Lynch, you hear Seth Rollins, you hear Roman Reigns talk about their love of wrestling. And because I look at this the same way I look at like somebody who's going to fail in the NFL because they don't love football. Like that's your entire life and you're about to get the crap kicked out of you because every Sunday when you go out there, if you don't love it, you're not going to be sticking around here very long. And if you don't love professional wrestling and understand what it represents and what it is, you're not going to stick around very long.
Yeah, but if you're a top-notch indie guy, so let's go with the past. Like if an Adam Cole, if a Johnny Gargano, if they were signed to NXT 2.0, why the hell would you want to work on that brand? Like, offense. Like, the people on that show are below some of these top indie guys. So why would you want to work there?
Because it's the WWE, man. And you heard Johnny talk about it.
Yeah.
He wants to work WrestleMania. And if you're an indie guy and you want to work WrestleMania someday, there's only one way to do it. Sign with the WWE. Get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's my new thing. I'm not going to say don't take offense. I'm going to say offense. Yes, it's like Brian. Offense. That's exactly right. I mean, but
that's an Evan Cohen special, just so everyone's aware.
Offense. I love
Shout out to Evco.
Yeah. You don't say that you don't want any more indie talent. We can't have indie-rific guys anymore. But then you go outside of wrestling to look for athletes to be able to fill the roster, and you can't. You did that, and you come up with almost.
Right.
That's what you came up with. Or Shanky.
That was Omos getting involved with the tag team match and making it a 6-man this week. That was one of my more disappointing moments on Raw. But do we have any other news?
Yeah, but you got a serious R-Truth though. You got an R-Truth actually in a serious match. How about that for the first time in like a decade?
Yeah. First time since he was tagging with The Miz and getting beat by The Rock at Survivor Series. Do we have any other news and notes, Brian?
Yeah, a couple more things. One of the guys that'll be at those workouts, Big E, will be helping out the WWE. He has told TMZ this week he is at peace if he never wrestles again. A recent setback means he'll be out at least a full year from that neck injury.
I mean, it's sad because I enjoy watching him perform. I'm glad that he's healthy because in those interviews with TMZ, he did a big one with ESPN.com as well, where he talks about, it seems like he has a lot of gratitude because he knows it could be worse. He has operation of his limbs. Like he's going to be able to, walk and then, play with his kids and do all those things. Like he just doesn't know if he can wrestle again. So he's at peace with that. And while sad, I'm glad he is at that place where he's at peace if it doesn't happen for him again. And I'm glad that he got his at least one run as WWE champion.
Yeah, I'm also happy too. Hopefully he'll be able to return to the ring because he's got unfinished business. And, when you're looking for a WWE champion, someone to carry the torch for the company, a lot of people looked over and just looked past Big E. But I think he did a great job of really representing the company. It wasn't just WWE. That guy was at boxing matches. He was at MMA fights. He was on College Game Day. So I liked how he was not just wrestling, but also representing the company in a positive way.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those dudes that'll always work there. And final note, Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes Bernardo. She's got her first appearance. She'll be appearing at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo on August 6th and 7th. Going to an A-Town, I guess.
Ah, yes, an A-Town. No surprise. C2E2. Her first time that's a non-WWE appearance. So when is she coming on, bro? It's what time? What day is she up here?
It's out there in the nether. We've put it out there. Hopefully
we've reached out. Soon. We've made the reach out. There was also, I saw a report out there that she's not taking any wrestling bookings at this point. So who knows what I think it's safe to assume at this point that she's been released, that she's no longer with the WWE. Maybe there's something in there that she can't appear on a wrestling show. Who knows? I'm sure those details will come out. But if she decides to return to wrestling, because she doesn't need wrestling, I think she's got a promising potential Hollywood career in front of her. I hope she returns because she is a joy to watch. But if she doesn't, I'm sure she'll be successful in movies and TV as well.
One dream match outside of the WWE. Who do we as a show want to see Sasha face? Non-WWE women wrestlers. Give me what's the one dream match?
So I'm going full storyline, but I think her and Britt would be a fun program. Like them going back and forth on the mic and then eventually the match payoff.
Yeah, I mean, Britt's the biggest female star outside of WWE. So, the big match would be with Britt. I think although her and Thunder Rosa would be a lot of fun to watch in the ring.
Probably Hikaru Shida for me. Someone like that, just a different style. She's taken on Asuka before. I think we've seen that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see her be able to take on some other international flavor just to see what that would look like. I think the money's with Britt and Sasha, but I'd also like to see her really challenged, right? I mean, in a non-WWE style, because it's a difference, right? In a different ring, whether it's in Japan or whether it's at AEW, I like to see her in a different style match to see how she would fare. I think she'd be excellent.
We are running tight on time, so let's quickly go around the horn. What was your favorite match or the best match you saw from this past week?
So I'm going to go the AEW tag titles. Like, it was fun. The reaction, the end was fun. But I'll also throw out, just from a fun standpoint, I really enjoyed Wardlow and Orange. Like, that was a fun match. Like, Wardlow ripped the pockets out. That's a big moment on TV right there.
Oh, my God. He ripped the pockets out.
It was very offensive.
Yeah.
Earned the TV 14 rating with that one.
Right.
It was offensive. Okay. I have a few, guys. I have a few.
So,
go ahead.
I want to give a shout out. The one I found myself surprisingly enjoying was Carmella versus Bianca Belair on Raw. And Carmella had an awesome counter to the KOD where it ended up into, I mean, I don't know, it's the old X-Pac X Factor is what I think of it, but that's pretty much what she countered it into. It was a counter I didn't see coming. It was even though you knew the outcome, it was a surprisingly fun match, kind of buried in the middle of Raw, and I really enjoyed that one on Monday night.
I have a few. I'll just narrow it down. So go out of your way to find AEW Dark and find Shota versus Pac at Rev Pro. That was for the All Atlantic Championship for AEW, so that was pretty good.
Can't even remember the name of the title.
Yeah, is all Atlantic? What is it? Mid Atlantic?
So. There's Atlantic is definitely in the name somewhere. Yeah. I know that.
I don't know. Atlantic Star. What is it? I'm not sure. I'll give you another Orange Cassidy match. Orange Cassidy against Nice. Had to go back and watch that on Rampage. Mm-hmm. That was a banger. We all know that Nice can go, but against Orange Cassidy, that was a better match than I thought it was going to be.
Well, so at what point do we start giving Orange Cassidy credit? Like, I understand that the gimmick is he doesn't care, like that's the gimmick. But how many times does he have to go and actually get mentioned in this segment before we like, oh, Orange Cassidy can go? I understand Nice is really talented when he goes up against Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door. Obviously, Ospreay can, wrestle a broom, and a lot of us are going to be entertained. But it's not like he's being carried through these matches either. I think he's holding his own.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to his talent, like the variety. Like he can have the Ospreay match, and then he can have a match where a chainsaw is involved. Like that just speaks to his talent, like how versatile he is.
That chainsaw. We're gonna cheat.
Hey, if you're gonna cheat, you might as well cheat, right? Like, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Shout out to the best friends.
That was a funny gimmick. I laughed. I laughed. And so I'm gonna go with, again on Rampage, I'm going Kingston Takeshita. Actually, you know what? I thought that again, that's a Rampage match, but I thought it was very good. Now, I know you will look at the Moxley match and think that was good, but I guess Takeshita in anything is good right now in AEW.
Again, if you're not watching Rampage on a regular basis, you're missing good. Like the first match, the last match are usually going to be pretty good. They give them time on Rampage and they start them right away. So you start off with that action right away. They usually do not disappoint. That first, the middle kind of ends up being schmazzy and some easy matches, but they bookend it very, very well.
Yeah, I'm going with that match, bro. I'll give you why. Here's the stat of the day for GKW. So Takeshita against Kingston went 16 minutes. All of SmackDown had 13 minutes of wrestling in 2 hours. 13 minutes, the whole show in 2 hours. 13 whole minutes. And the first match on Rampage with Kingston was a whole 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to talk about SmackDown because they went to commercial break without anybody saying a word. They did a replay. Roman comes out, and then they went to commercial. Oh man,
do that radio once. Just start, just talk, and then just don't say anything, and then just fade off. Just right to the commercial. See how that works.
Can I do that tomorrow? It's Friday in honor of SmackDown. I think on Jen Gabe Chewy, ESPN Milwaukee. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to go to break without saying a word.
Sound and then go to break. You're good to go.
Just play some sound and just fade off and just see what happens.
Play our opening song and play off. Jen Gabe and Chewy coming up next.
What you think about that? Think about it. I mean, not even 15 minutes of actual wrestling on SmackDown for 2 hours. I feel so bad for
it's
those
a shame.
people. I mean, God almighty. Where was that? Where was that last week, bro? Is this Fort Worth?
I don't know.
Yes.
Fort Worth.
Yeah,
A-Town. Dallas, Fort Worth. And then you give them that?
When it was here in Milwaukee, it was disappointing as well because then at least maybe you get a good dark match. No, the dark match that we got in Milwaukee, it was pre-WrestleMania, so it was Ronda versus Charlotte. And that ended up in Charlotte just walking out. So she got counted out. The dark match took 4 minutes, and I was very disappointed when last time SmackDown was here. It's a shame what's happened to SmackDown because 6-8 months ago it was clearly the A show, and now it's Nothing. Hopefully it gets better for them tomorrow. I doubt it does, but we can always hope. Fingers crossed. There are always going to be things to talk about in the world of professional wrestling, but I feel bad because we've made Jay Hood late for Impact. He's 10 minutes late. He's going to have to go back on the DVR. Make sure you join us next week for another exciting episode of GKW.